So, how do you actually resist yourself from all these temptations, all these lures and urges to do the wrong thing? Well, first of all, you have to set clear and healthy boundaries to really accept yourself as a prominent, a powerful, a controlling and dominant figure in your own life, right? And that's the first step to regaining control in your life, is to really demonstrate your ability to control yourself. And by controlling yourself, I mean all your desires, all your habits, all your activities, and all your, addictions, per se. So how exactly does anyone really begin to demonstrate that ability? Well, first, I thought that in order for me to actually live a better life, deprived from all these blessings and all these good facets of life and successful endeavors and prosperity, I would first need to actually control the negative habits of my life that really demolish any of my chances and opportunities that come knocking to my door. And first, I recognized that the problem was that I was always resorting to addictions whenever life became hard. And I think that is one of the most major significant ways to actually discover your abilities to resist any temptations, is the ability to recognize that you are suffering in a problem, right? That there is a problem, that your life is not okay, that you do need to take responsibility for your own life, that you do need to take charge of your own life and any future or present or past histories, right? So the first thing I did ever, whenever I actually had those urges, was to write down what the problems were in my life, the biggest problems I saw, the biggest hurdles that I needed to overcome first in order to become this successful person that I dreamed of. And at first, the ideal person that I dreamed of was so far-fetched, so separated from my realities, and it was really hurting. And I was very depressed as a result. And in a chronically depressed state, it's really hard for you to make any move to better yourself or get yourself out of that darkness. But starting on the Nofap journey did give me the first momentum to actually go out there and go to the library and read on the subjects that I actually need to know in order to embark on this self-improvement journey once and for all. This concept of self-improvement, however, it really did get a hold of me, and I did become, at one point in my life, a self-help junkie, which really is not the actual goal of self-improvement. Self-improvement really leads you to improve your life, not to just dwell on the methods, but actually to implement them in your own lives. So one of the various tricks and methods that I used in my Nofap program was to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning every single day and make a record of what I did, productive things I did, listing the pages and the amount of miles, the number of miles I ran and read, how I cooked, how I read, how I wrote. I started to record everything, and I started to record my feelings and emotions at the time of which I was recording, in order to journal my progress and just see that all these milestones are being stored and they are being met, and that my desire to fundamentally transform myself is in action. And that ability to lure yourself away from the temptations is a key factor of self-discipline. And you really need a good mentality at first to demonstrate that ability, because it is really hard. It gets really hard when you're not in the best condition. It's raining outside and you don't have any motivation or inspiration, and you just have to squeeze the will out of you every single morning to get up and follow these schedules that you set up for yourself, right? And during the first months of my Nofap journey, I think the hardest part was to keep the momentum going, because I'd be so motivated and inspired for the first 3-5 days, and then on the 6th day I'd be feeling like crap because of bad sleep, bad hygiene, bad condition, or bad dream even. And then feeling bad about myself and feeling this impending sadness, feeling this feeling of hopelessness, I would want an out. I would want to deny this part of myself, this depressed part of myself, and actually create this happier self. So in order to create my happier version, I would resort to addictions, pornography, smoking, drinking, and all these substances that made you temporarily relieved from all your stress. And one day, when I kept that cycle going, I would always, keep myself from masturbating for 3 days, and then on the 4th day I'd feel like crap, so I would resort to pornography to make myself feel better. But in the long run, that action to make myself feel relieved would actually deter myself from the goal of feeling myself relieved. And when I realized that this cycle wasn't working, I actually wrote down all the pros and cons of watching pornography and masturbation, and it really gave me this immense sense of pleasure. Watching pornography and just jerking off to your fantasies is one of the most rewarding pleasures in human dialects, right? Because it's in your mind, in your imagination, your dreams and fantasies are actually coming into reality for a split moment. But then I realized that specific pleasure and that few seconds of pleasure doesn't compensate for all of the losses that you take in return, because it's like a give and take in nature. Process of give and take requires you that you sacrifice something for the reward you get. So the reward I got was instantaneous pleasure every single day, and I realized that I was sacrificing too much of my life for that instantaneous pleasure, and I started to run away from my pornographic, pervertized manifestos. And once I did, I really reconnected on a spiritual level, on a physical level, on a financial level, on a mental, psychological level, and hugely on a very moral level as well. I started to value women and other people without intending any sexual references or any sexual value for any appearances, but of true human value. Like, a true human value has no limits, but if you just label them within sexual parameters, then you're only looking at a person and thinking that person is precious or valuable because of their appearances, which really is not a good habit or thought process. It's not healthy for our society either. Anyways, but I used various apps. I used the Today app. I used habit trackers. I used a lot of methods, journaling. I used running as a means to distract myself from the urges whenever I got one. I downloaded the Nofap emergency app, the application on my iPhone, and whenever I would get an urge, I would look at all these quotes and all these these very inspirational and motivating quotes and statements to rebuild myself, to keep remembering and regurgitating the initial momentum, the initiative to start on this journey. And it was painful, and I'd like to mention that this is not a road you take in order to just experience, I don't know, pleasure. It's not really a pleasurable ride. It's more of a very painful, it's more of a very disciplined, it's more of a very abstaining road to gaining better insights and perceptions of life in general. And this really goes along with abstaining from drugs and just keeping yourself away from any temptations in general, is to believe that those temptations aren't worth it at all. You have to just keep memorizing and keep reminding to yourself that those instant pleasures are not worth your time. They're not worth sacrificing the good of your life, the good fruits that you may produce in your life in the future. And it really comes upon you as the truth as to which you really realize this, and then you don't really need any further external inspirations from